Welcome to our presentation on including all students with disabilities in non-academic services and extracurricular activities. This presentation has been developed and is being presented by Lawton Public Schools Special Services Center and the District Section 504 office. The presentation is a supplement to our district's annual Section 504 training, the purpose of which is to provide more in-depth information and discussion regarding non-discrimination of students with disabilities in all non-academic services and extracurricular activities. Additionally, this training is required as part of a resolution agreement with the Office of Civil Rights, also known as OCR. As addressed in Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and all subsequent amendments, it states, "No otherwise qualified individual with a disability in the United States shall, solely by reason of his or her disability, be excluded from the participation in, be denied benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance." This is a straightforward and clear language statement that prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability. It also includes individuals with disabilities who have a record of an impairment or a disability, or who is regarded as having a disability. It should be understood that Section 504 is an important federal law which, if not complied with, results in discrimination and violates the civil rights of persons with disabilities. Section 504 protects students with disabilities by ensuring equal opportunities. So, when we talk about students with disabilities, exactly what students with disabilities are we including? The bottom line is all students with disabilities are protected, regardless of if they are eligible and receiving accommodations and/or services through a Section 504 plan or an IEP. Also, consider the other prongs of the definition of disability under Section 504. A person who has a record of disability or is regarded or perceived as having a disability, plus those who are also on individualized health plans or those who have diagnosed conditions the school district has knowledge of but who are not yet formally identified as having a disability. Remember, Section 504 favors broad coverage, and complaints to the Office of Civil Rights can be filed for students meeting the definition of a disability under Section 504 who are not yet identified as having a disability under either Section 504 or IDEA. On this slide, the big takeaway here is to understand how Section 504 relates to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and IEP students. Remember, OCR says most, if not all, IEP students are protected from discrimination on the basis of disability by Section 504. Although not all Section 504 eligible students will qualify for special education services under IDEA. Many of the disability discrimination complaints filed with the Office of Civil Rights under Section 504 are on behalf of special education students served on an IEP. Here are two graphics to further the understanding of the interrelationship between Section 504 and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Another important takeaway from this visual representation of how IDEA and Section 504 are related includes the following. Every IDEA or special education eligible student is also included in the class of students with disabilities that are protected from discrimination under Section 504. When you look at the graphic, the whole group of students with disabilities in a district, a school, or even a classroom, which includes the green circle, the light blue circle, and the dark blue circle, this group is potentially larger than just those identified under Section 504 in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. The whole group could include those students on individualized health plans who are not on an IEP or a 504 plan, those having a record of or being regarded or perceived as having a disability, and those with diagnosed conditions who might not qualify yet and who are not formally identified for Section 504 or IDEA. It may also include students who are identified but are not currently in need of accommodations under Section 504. One additional piece of information to note is that IDEA eligible special education students who have an IEP are not required to have a separate Section 504 accommodation plan, even though they are protected from discrimination under Section 504. The Office of Civil Rights has determined that for these students, an IEP that is developed in accordance with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is sufficient. The IEP is to be designed to meet all the needs of a student with a disability, and a Section 504 plan is not necessary. So, by now it should be clear that Section 504 Civil Rights Law prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability. In other words, to clarify the prohibition of discrimination based on disability in all non-academic services and extracurricular activities, Section 504 makes the following clarifications and statements. It makes it illegal to discriminate on the basis of disability, and it's also illegal to exclude an individual with a disability from participation in any program or activity of an agency receiving federal funding. Section 504 applies to any agency that receives federal funds, including public schools. Our school district receives federal funds, therefore it must comply with Section 504. And most important is non-compliance can put all federal funds at risk. We need to consider, think, and ask questions before excluding students on the basis of disability. Exactly what are non-academic services and extracurricular activities? They include everything a district or a school may offer to regular education students that is school-sponsored. While this list is not all-inclusive, it is representative of some of the areas cited in the Section 504 regulations, and these are also areas that are often the subject of discrimination complaints filed with the Office of Civil Rights. One of the main purposes of this supplementary Section 504 training is to train specifically on the topic of non-discrimination and including all students with disabilities in non-academic and extracurricular activities offered by the district. This includes training on the additions to and updated language in our district's Section 504 guidelines and handbook for educators and administrators. The updates were made and submitted and approved by the Office of Civil Rights in April of 2018. The following slides with screenshots of those changes places emphasis on required actions, and due diligence on the part of our district to comply with Section 504. This is to ensure that students with disabilities are not excluded from all non-academic and extracurricular activities offered by Lawton Public Schools. This includes the affirmative duty to provide equal opportunity and reasonable accommodations for participation of students with disabilities. In ensuring equal opportunity under Section 504, the provision of a free appropriate public education, or FAPE, is a given. This provides an appropriate education and related aids and services free of charge to students with disabilities and their parents or guardians. The exception to this is any fee equally imposed on non-disabled peers or their parents or guardians. Part of FAPE, free appropriate public education, is considering placement. Placement is a continuum of options that range from regular classes to separate classrooms for all or part of the school day, specially designed instruction in classrooms, at home, or in other private or public institutions, all with or without supplementary aids or services, including related services such as speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, transportation, psychological counseling, and medical diagnostic services necessary to the child's education. Updated language in our Section 504 Guidelines and Handbook from April 2018 clearly emphasizes the Lawton Public School District's obligation to include all students with disabilities by providing equal opportunity and not excluding students with disabilities from non-academic and extracurricular activities. Once again, under Educational Services and Placement in our manual, the updated language of our Section 504 Guidelines and Handbook clearly states that placement decisions must be based on an individual student's needs and made in the least restrictive environment, otherwise known as LRE. One way of thinking about this is to remember that all students with disabilities are regular education students first, and to offer equal opportunity placement decisions must include a discussion of what is available to all regular education students, starting with the regular education environment and offerings. Placement options for students with disabilities under both Section 504 and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, range from least restrictive to most restrictive. Some examples include general or regular education classes full-time. This could be with or without supplementary aids and services in the regular education setting. Special classes part-time, special classes full-time, special schools, home or hospital instruction. In providing equal opportunity for participation of a student with a disability, the school or district may need to conduct an individualized assessment of the student to determine if inclusion in the non-academic service or extracurricular activity with appropriate accommodations, modifications, and/or support can be achieved. This means that Section 504 and IEP teams must discuss providing equal opportunities for participation of students with disabilities in all non-academic and extracurricular activities during IEP and Section 504 meetings. Several resources are cited at the end of this presentation. The resources will provide more information and clarification on the degree to which a school district must make reasonable modification to its policies, practices, or procedures when necessary to ensure equal opportunity in athletics and extracurricular activities. Modifications may need to be made unless it can be demonstrated that the requested modification would result in a fundamental alteration of the nature of the athletic or extracurricular activity. Remember, the obligation of the school district is to afford qualified students with a disability an equal opportunity for participation in an integrated manner to the maximum extent appropriate to the needs of that student, as cited in the Section 504 regulations. Additional language regarding the process and the timeline for dissemination of Section 504 and IEP plans, including accommodations, are listed in our manual. All Section 504 and IEP plans, including accommodations, are to be provided to all extracurricular and non-academic service providers within 1 week of the development of or amendment to any such plan, or also upon enrollment of the student in a non-academic service or extracurricular activity. The procedure established by the district for persons responsible at the building level will be under the direction of the Section 504 coordinator to disseminate and document receipt of Section 504 plans, IEPs, and accommodations to all extracurricular and non-academic service providers. The procedure established is as follows. Section 504 plans and accommodations at the building level are to be distributed by site-based Section 504 coordinators and site-based Section 504 staff. Early childhood IEPs are to be disseminated by early childhood special education teachers / folder holders. Elementary IEPs are to be disseminated by elementary special education teachers / folder holders. Middle school IEPs are to be disseminated by middle school special education department chairs, and high school IEPs are to be disseminated by high school special education department chairs. Section 504 and IEP team members, along with non-academic, athletic, and extracurricular service providers, administrators, and any others involved with the student, must be diligent and aware of when students with disabilities engage in opportunities for participation in such activities throughout the school year. This is very important as opportunities may present themselves for students after the Section 504 or IEP team has met. Irregardless, the IEP, Section 504 plan, and accommodations therein must be provided to the extracurricular activity or non-academic service provider. Please contact appropriate Section 504 and special education staff at your school or at the district level with any questions. Ask questions before excluding because of disability, due to a medical condition, or due to a perceived disability. This slide provides extremely important considerations and guidance related to providing equal opportunity in a variety of areas. It is important to know who our students with disabilities are. And remember, equal opportunity should always be the key words. In counseling, provide equal opportunity for participation in school counseling activities in the least restrictive environment. Also, do not counsel students with disabilities towards more restrictive career goals or paths, or exclude them from opportunities in these areas. In physical education and athletics, provide equal opportunity for participation of students in the least restrictive environment. While a district may offer these activities separately, it may only do so when absolutely necessary. Lastly, in PE and athletics, we may not deny a student with a disability the opportunity to participate in activities which are not separate. In other academic classes, electives and extracurricular activities provide equal opportunity for participation in all of those in the least restrictive environment. Do not limit students with disabilities to only special education classes, electives, or extracurricular activities. For example, Special Olympics, special education only field trips, or special education only electives. Forgetting to properly include students with disabilities in all non-academic and extracurricular activities, including athletics, was one of the top 10 biggest mistakes to avoid, as cited by Julie J. Weatherly, Esquire, in her presentation, Section 504, The Biggest Mistakes to Avoid. Julie presented this session at the LRP National Institute on Legal Issues of Educating Individuals with Disabilities on April 24, 2018 in Dallas, Texas. References cited or mentioned in the notes from Julie J. Weatherly's presentation, Section 504, The Biggest Mistakes to Avoid, include the following. An Office of Civil Rights Dear Colleague letter dated January 25, 2013 that specifically addresses participation of students with disabilities in athletics and extracurricular activities. She included a reminder that students with disabilities are entitled to equal access to and participation in all non-academic and extracurricular activities, not just sports. These include clubs, proms, field trips, after-school programs, cheerleading, band, etc. She also addressed appropriately informing students and parents of these non-academic services and extracurricular activities and opportunities. She cited some court cases that address the following issues. Some of these issues are mistakes on the part of the school district, and some of the issues are examples where the school districts appropriately inform students and parents of opportunities. The first is a deaf student who could not hear loudspeaker announcements, did not have an interpreter, etc. Another example is where a school publicized extracurricular activities using a variety of methods, allowing adequate access to information by parents and students. Another such example includes multiple announcements made in classes each period and repeatedly by a teacher. Another mistake on the part of school districts is forgetting to include students who have home instruction that are homebound or home-based in notifications about opportunities. Another error on the part of school districts is posting of incomplete lists of activities on the school district website or on other published notifications. And lastly, another error on the part of school districts is not addressing behavioral problems that may impede a student's ability to participate in non-academic services and extracurricular activities. Some valuable resources for ensuring equal opportunities for students with disabilities in non-academic services and extracurricular activities, as well as some other related topics, are included on this slide. The first resource is OCR's Dear Colleague letter on students with disabilities in extracurricular athletics, dated January 25, 2013. An accompanying document to that Dear Colleague letter is a background and fast facts document which has a question and answer format that most people will find valuable. Additionally, the Office of Civil Rights under the U.S. Department of Education, has developed a Parent and Educator Resource Guide to Section 504 in public and elementary and secondary schools. In this document, particular to our training topic today, there are several sections for you to review. The first is a whole section on athletics and extracurricular activities, found on page 27 and 28. Another area to look at is physical accessibility, and this document includes scenarios on some of the topics, and this particular scenario 8 has to do with a student with a disability who wants to access an art class that is on the second floor. And lastly, scenario 9, found on pages 30 to 31, addresses additional protections for discrimination and unjustified different treatment. This particular scenario is in regards to a field trip and the school requiring that the parent attend the field trip with the student. Please review these resources for wonderful information to help better understand the importance of providing equal opportunities to students with disabilities. For questions on Section 504, one great resource is the Lawton Public Schools Section 504 Guidelines and Handbook for Educators and Administrators. This document can be found at the Lawton Public Schools website under Employees, under Parents, and under Special Services. Please refer to this document for resources and wonderful information on understanding Section 504. In addition to the district Section 504 handbook, you may also tap into your site-based Section 504 coordinator and/or site staff, as well as the district Section 504 coordinator, whose contact information is listed on this slide. Thank you for your attention to this very important training topic, and have a wonderful school year.